Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Kyle Ashcraft of Maxwell CPA Review. I got a 90 and above on all 4 CPA exams, and my best exam score was for BEC. I got a 98. So you might be wondering how I got such a good score on it, and that's what this video is going to cover. How to approach the BEC exam and do as best as you can at it. So with that, let's jump in. So let's first talk about the BEC exam structure and what makes it unique. Well, the BEC exam is kind of a strange exam because it covers everything from IT terms to economics to managerial accounting. It also has a written communication section where you have to write 3 essays on business topics. The BEC exam is the shortest of all 4 exams in terms of the amount of content, the hours of video lectures, and the length of your textbook. So I studied for the BEC exam over the course of 3 weeks and over 60 hours. Most websites would probably recommend 70 hours of studying. And then whereas I used an outline for the FAR and Reg exams, I just used my textbook as my outline for BEC. So I would highlight things in the textbook and then go back and review them before taking the test. I didn't focus so much on practice problems versus conceptually understanding the different content. And that's the #1 tip I would give for the BEC exam is understand the logic and rationale behind the questions. The test makers could ask the same thing 10 different ways. So you want to understand how a concept really works and the logic behind the question. From there, you can solve a lot of the problems. The first section we're going to talk about is on economics. There's a few major topics within this you need to know. Supply, demand, elasticity, monetary policy, and fiscal policy. For supply and demand, you need to make it personalized. And what I mean by that is I would picture myself as the consumer for demand and coffee as the consumer good, just because it's fun to think about. And then for supply, I would think about my favorite coffee supplier, and that would help me to picture it just a little bit better. And then for fiscal policy and monetary policy, think about, are these decisions making the dollar stronger or weaker in comparison to other currencies? And then is this causing inflation or deflation? Next is on corporate governance and the internal controls. For corporate governance, know the difference between the 3 groups, which are the board of directors, the stockholders, and the company management. Specifically, know who has the decision-making power between those 3 groups. And then for internal controls, there's a 5-part COSO framework that you need to understand. There's the control environment, the control activities, risk assessment, information and communication, and then monitoring. Next is on capital budgeting. So companies need to know how to invest their money. There's 2 questions that these formulas really try to address. One is what % return will I get for my investment? And then 2 is how fast will I get back my initial investment? There's 4 main formulas that you need to understand. Payback period, net present value, internal rate of return, and accounting rate of return. And with those, you need to understand which ones use the time value of money and which ones don't. Next is on cost accounting. You need to know about direct materials, direct labor, and indirect costs, such as overhead. You need to know how inventory goes through its different phases. Know how it starts from raw materials to WIP to finished goods and then ultimately to cost of goods sold. The most confusing part of the exam is on variance analysis, and specifically on overhead variance analysis. So variance analysis takes a look at what actually happened versus what you expected to happen. And you can focus on variances for price, rate, usage, efficiency, and production. So there's a lot of different things to wrap your mind around for it. Then we move on to information technology, IT. With this, there's going to be certain terms that you've definitely heard about, like what is the internet? And then there's other ones that you've probably never heard of, like what is electronic data interchange? So focus on memorizing a lot of different terms, knowing that it doesn't go super in depth on any particular concept. Now let's talk about the written communication section of the exam. So you're going to get a writing prompt, and it's going to sound something like, you are the CFO of ABC Company, and the CEO is asking whether or not the company should expand its operations overseas. Write the pros and the cons of such a decision. So then you will write 3 to 5 paragraphs on that topic. And it's really important to know that it's actually a computer that's grading these essays. The only time that a person would jump in is if you're on the fence between passing and failing the exam. So there's 3 important things. Make sure that you're staying structured, use as many relevant vocab terms as possible, and then make sure that your spelling and grammar are both on point. Spend about 3 to 5 minutes for each of the 3 writing essays creating an outline. So you want to think through all the relevant terms you can think of, and then think of how you could use them in different sentences. Because after all, you don't want to get halfway through your essay only to realize that it's not really going anywhere. So that's about it. We've covered the exam structure and the different topics that you really need to make sure that you conceptually understand. So I hope that it helps you to smash the BEC exam. And if you have any questions or comments, then please reach out.